Okay.
In focus? Still blurry a little bit.
Just a little more. Now let's bring it down. Okay, Joe, start it. Watch those two little red dots down there. Okay, now it's recording when it's like that.
Right.
And so Rinpoche is the 10th generation of a lineage that has been handed down from father to son, father to son. And we are very, very honored and very happy to have him here with us. And his wife Maya is translating for him. And this is Garwan, his son. He's 15 months old. And we're very happy to have all three of them here with us. So welcome. And I know you will benefit. Thank you.
So again, I'd like to wish you all good luck. Tonight I will be speaking a little bit about the mother lineage concerning the goddess and female Buddha Tara. First, I would like to speak a little bit about why this mother lineage is so very important and what is so special about it. And if you can't hear in the back, please tell me. You can't hear?
No, it's fine.
Oh, okay. In general, we speak of the father lineage and the mother lineage as representing skillful means and wisdom.
So,
Both of them are excellent. The mother lineage is extremely important. So in speaking of skillful means, what we actually mean by skillful means is the methods or techniques by which we realize the essence of wisdom and emptiness. We speak of the Dharmakaya as being represented by the Great Mother, and the essence of this is wisdom and emptiness. This is the essence of wisdom. Also, the very essence of skillful means, and the very essence of great bliss and skillful means is wisdom and emptiness.
Sanje se ding dila ane sanje kusung ge 부장시 전에 출구당 농구 출구 생기게 이제 그런 넘버 숨겨래.
In speaking of Buddhahood, or of the Buddha, in speaking of Buddhahood, we speak of there being 3 levels or stages, and these we divide up into the Dharmakaya, the Sambhogakaya, and the Nirmanakaya.
어디 구성기 출구세 디아데 나중에 라바나시 샤랍 방방이 뭐들 시게요래.
Speaking of the ultimate or highest level of Buddhahood or stage of Buddhahood, which is the Dharmakaya, the essence of this is emptiness and wisdom.
샤랍 방방이게 정신자 되네 출구 모두 슈베 아니 출구 윤차 모습 되는데 다산지 탐제 개베 윤차 모습 되제.
Another way of speaking of this is to refer to this as the Great Mother, which is the source of all of the Buddhas. Another way of speaking of the Dharmakaya.
이 산지 탐제 개베 윤 카르레스드.
In what way is this said to be the mother of all of the Buddhas?
출구디 출구인게 더 담배 출구인게 윤체모디 인 쨘바던 차와 쨘바메바제 이 출기 인생에 들라 쨘베 세마 타니 쪽이요 말에 쨘바메바제 출구라 출구당 롱굴이야 수요래 네바요래 출구인라
When we speak of the Dharmakaya, we also are speaking of a level which can be called the Dharma realm as well, and this is considered to be formless.
출기인 저와 탐제담 차와 딜롱에 드네 네방아den기 신감 롱구감 당 드네 주구 신감 제와 차야 삼임미캬레 아니 주구 신감 야레 근데 탐제 출근에 막 주용바제 탐제의 주시 인상 드네 야와 탐제 개베 용 세대야데 되게 제도제.
The actual source of the other manifestations or levels of Buddhahood is this Dharmakaya, or Dharma realm itself. So it can be called the Great Mother. Manifestations at the Sambhogakaya level, which is sometimes called the bliss level or communication level or aspect of Buddhahood, emanate from the Dharmakaya. Moreover, after emanating from the Dharmakaya, there are other manifestations on the level of actual physical beings called physical emanations, or Nirmanakaya, or Tulku. And this also has its source in the Dharmakaya, or Dharma realm, which is said to be the Great Mother. Mother in the sense of being a source.
근데 내가 나시 다진게 라바이 실다는 게 먼저 라비요나 먼저 직당이 칸게 로와토 이나야 호주 탐제 탑이랑 신다 모주 탐제 시라고 뭐지 부장신 전제.
So as I said before, generally speaking, we divide the 2 lineages up and call them the mother lineage or mother tantras, and the father lineage or father tantras. The mother lineage has to do with wisdom, and the father lineage with skillful means.
근데 인도 때나 먼저 하게 남네 dorji phoben se ya sigare.
On the tantric path, we speak of there being a Vajracharya, which means the teacher or guru.
Tene dorji phoben se ngi tsini ya dila khonya chho da cheba yoje khen chikla tene dorji phoben so gyutu ge yum yokhan dorji phoben gyutu ge penan dolam ge yum tene dorji phoben yore dorji phoben la ge dorji phoben ge tsini la
Sengi
yum nade tende pao yapjan tende ram gende baje dorji phoben la phoben mare te khage namne tene ti maju di shirage keshen baje.
Moreover, it should be explained that if one uses the term Vajracharya, which means teacher or guru, it is in particular a title referring to a tantric teacher who has a consort. We don't use the term Vajracharya for a guru or teacher, even if he's a tantric teacher, who does not have a consort. Or meaning if it isn't possible for him to have a consort, if he is a monk. In that case, he has a different title. He wouldn't be called Vajracharya.
Tindrabo tene muju dishira ge ranshin yidu tsamba nyurlam ge gone sangye trubala ane shira kechen bure.
Since the feminine aspect is of the nature of wisdom, for practitioners on the short path to Buddhahood, this is extremely important.
Tanda go shabo yina dog lamne sanji chomdinde dorji dene sanji ba yin sila kuje.
For example, when we speak of the sutra system, the ancient system of Buddhism at the time of the Buddha, which was the most popular at that time, we say that Shakyamuni Buddha was enlightened in Bodh Gaya. And this is, in this way, speaking of the Buddha, is according to the custom and style of what is known as the sutra system or Hinayana. We of the Tantric tradition speak of this very same Buddha Shakyamuni as having visited a particular realm, which is to have visited a particular realm which is in fact the highest Buddha field, and which is, in speaking of him, during his own lifetime. And in that particular Buddha field, he had a consort, and at that time, along with his consort, gave special tantric teachings in that Buddha field. And that teaching is called in Sanskrit Kala Chakra. And this Kala Chakra teaching was given by the Buddha himself. And at that time he had a consort. At that time, Shakyamuni was in the form of Dorje Chang, or Vajras, was in the form of a Buddha called Dorje Chang. And at that time, having a consort, he gave this special tantric teachings.
리체도 나중에 도시 허가생이 교회 체도 안에 타람지 자기만 보고요. 에스야데 생기 되게 된다. 저는 도시 허가생이 용야가 유명한 도시 허가 라프도 말에 에스야데 되게 배라고 하는 생각이 좀 있는데 용게도 다한테
So this is just to give you a little bit of background on the different considerations. If a guru is known as a Vajracharya, then he has a consort. And there are certain types of teachings which have been given by the Buddha at the time when he did have a consort. For example, as was just mentioned, in the form of Dorje Chung, giving the teaching of Kala Chakra in the highest Buddha field.
나시 하긴 남네 투모 모임에 람 대동 찾게 전부 이시세야 등문도 제배 타올라 근데 시라비 윤티 시다게 친구래.
Also, if one is a tantric practitioner, it is very important to have a tantric consort in order to realize the bliss and emptiness. This is one real aspect of realization.
Tiga naji migi rigna la yena ya lumba gashe la soso di lumba lukso dahogi rangshin tane choga dan kemen la rig thumen da utya lukso yore choga rig choga di rig yaga da kemen di tese memba da lumba gashe ge lumba soso di komshi da da lukso da de yore yena ya dorji tebe lukso la di yamare chög na
There have been certain types of ideas that people have had concerning the status of men and women with regards to Buddhism. These actually have their origin in the fact that in certain countries where Buddhism was prevalent, there was indeed a very big difference in the status of men and women, and they were considered in different ways. But in actual fact, if we speak of Vajrayana Buddhism itself, also called Tantric Buddhism, there has never been any discrimination with regard to men and women.
그러나 시라고 윤승이 안에 투모 모임에 파기 람게 시럽 동반이게 이신문도 제발이야 제나시 안에 이 시럽기 상에 건제벤 데빅다고 안에 자기만 써야 돼. 이제도 계속 자기야.
For example, on the tantric path itself, the consort is considered to be the key, an actual requisite for realizing wisdom. The consort is considered to be like a kind of a ritual substance or alchemical substance for the transformation of the mental state. And she is considered to be a key and is sometimes called by the term mudra, which means symbol, a symbol, something symbolic. And why is this necessary, if you're interested in why it's so necessary? Since the feminine aspect is of the nature of wisdom,
rangshi ki ngadu ninde samlu tangi yina lume shirab ki rangshi yinba de kare ka kogresana samlu ki shira yurgire.
If we want to just speak in general about women on a very, very ordinary level, it can certainly be noticed that their nature is a nature of quick intelligence, because women think much more quickly than men.
Somebody shira sangire, 저거기 somebody tembo da bosta, jigo da boshiore. Kumegi somebody shira gi nyurbo da yangbo gi thingi yore.
The nature of in general speaking, just very generally speaking, the nature of the feminine mind is quick and light. The nature of the masculine mind is heavy and stable. One can also look at them physically and notice certain other types of differences. Just for example, when you watch them walk, men have a heavy walk. Women are light on their feet and move quick. There is a connection between the physical aspect and the mind. It's a reflection of something that's going on in the mind. This is to be considered a sign of the essential mental nature of the feminine aspect. And we call this essential feminine aspect wisdom. For us, the most important thing is wisdom. Generally speaking, we don't discriminate between the practices of the mother tantras and the father tantras of the two lineages. We consider them to be equally important, both very great. But in particular, speaking of the tantric path in particular, we consider the feminine aspect to be absolutely essential. The reason for this is because it is of the nature of wisdom and emptiness. So the source of these mother tantras and particular practices, the source of all dharmas, is the Dharmakaya itself, which can also be called the Great Mother. And it emanates from the Dharmakaya to the Sambhogakaya, from the Sambhogakaya to the Nirmanakaya, with great power and great potency, reflecting countless numbers of actual incarnations of Dakinis who are a feminine aspect of Buddhahood in actual physical manifestations and all different kinds of manifestations. In speaking of these emanations of the feminine aspect of Buddhahood, some of them are born in the great holy places. Some of them are found or born in the great holy places.
근데 그것이 rigyu 된데 내가 컨트롤
Rigyu. Some of them are found in actual lineages coming from particular families, particularly in families of tantric practitioners.
등속에 얘네 주발이야 망해 버치네 주발 시작이 마음을 직된 감각이야.
And there are also many incarnations and manifestations of this feminine aspect of Buddhahood found in our own human world. And I'll tell you a story about that. Previously, there was a monk, and he lived in Tibet. His personal deity, meditational deity, was the Vajrayogini. This is a feminine form of the Buddha. He had great faith that all women were essentially the Vajrayogini, his very own meditational deity. He believed fully that every single last woman was the Vajrayogini. Because of this belief, every time he saw a woman, he practiced the religious he did the religious practice of circumambulation, which means walking around a holy object or a holy person. Every single time he saw a woman, he walked in a circle around her. One day he was out with a friend of his, and they were taking a walk, and they came to a great meadow and a great empty plain. And as was the custom in Tibet, they decided to sit down for a while and relax and make some tea. So they found 3 stones and they put them together, making a little foundation to make a fire and to put their teapot on. And they put the tea on and they sat there relaxing. And they said to each other, "This is a comfortable spot, let's sit here and have our tea." And the monk said to his friend, "You take care of the fire, I'll go and get the water." When he went to get water, he saw an old woman coming. And as always, on seeing a woman, he said to himself, "Ah, how wonderful, the Vajrayogini." And he went up to her and circumambulated her. And the old woman was wearing what we Tibetans usually wear, which is a kind of a wraparound dress. And she stuck her hand into the fold of her dress and stuck her hand deep down under her clothes and pulled out a turnip. And she gave it to the monk. The monk was overwhelmed with joy. He thought to himself, today I have received the supreme blessing of the Vajrayogini. And so he took his water along with the turnip, which was the blessing of the yogini, he felt, back to where his friend was, and he said to his friend, today I have received the highest and most supreme blessing of the Vajrayogini. And he took the turnip and he cut a little piece off and he offered it to his friend. And his friend said, I'm not going to eat a piece of a turnip that came out of the dirty underwear of that old woman. And the monk couldn't do anything about it. But they had with them a little puppy. So he took the piece of turnip and he chewed it up and he spat out a little piece from his hand and he put it in the puppy's mouth. And the dog ate it. And he also ate some. And so the two of them continued making tea, and after the tea was made, at the time when they were drinking the tea, from the sky came great manifestations, remarkable manifestations, inconceivable to the mind, consisting of rainbows in all different kinds of shapes and forms, radiant rays of light, celestial music, and the smell of incense. There was a rain of flowers. And it was amazing. At this time, immediately, the old monk, along with the puppy, rose up into the air and disappeared among the rainbows. The friend who was left behind watched them rise up into the sky, watched them go higher and higher, and saw them being absorbed into the rainbow light and being actually transported to the realm or Buddha field of the Dakinis. This is due to the kindness of the Dakinis. And I'll tell another story. In the old days in India, there was a yogi. This yogi received a prophecy from a guru. The guru spoke to him in this manner. He said, if you go to this certain area which is on the border of Tibet and Nepal, a place called Karcha, a place which is sacred to the deity Demchok. In that place you will meet with an emanation of the Vajrayogini. And when you do so, you will realize Buddhahood.
근데 저 가셔 지구 리싱이 요래 리시요래 리티 때문에 그런데 뭐 마음에 좀
So, because there was such a prophecy from the Guru, the yogi traveled to this borderland place and all the way to this mountain which was sacred to the tutelary deity Demchok. And on his way to this place, he met the king of the country, the king of that area. And the king said to him, seeing that he was a yogi, "Please come to my palace and stay there as my private priest, and I will support you." This was a custom, to have a private lama, private priest. And the yogi replied that no, he did not wish to live in the king's palace, that he had no attachments and no desires and just wanted to be free. He says, and the yogi said that he was going to this mountain sacred to the deity, and he was going to stay there. And the king was very angry. So then the king became furiously angry with the yogi. And he thought, what an arrogant yogi that guy is. I asked him to be my private priest and he refused me, the king. And so after the yogi left to stay on the mountain, the king had some inquiries made and found that he was indeed staying there on the mountain. And since the king was very angry, he thought of a way of getting even with him. And in this area, there was a woman who made beer. And the king went to this woman and offered her many gifts and money. And she said, go to the mountain and seduce that yogi. And make sure that he breaks his vows. He was, in fact, seemed to be a monk. Make sure that he breaks his vows and stay there with him. And so the woman did as the king requested. She took the money, and she went and she took plenty of beer, and she went to where the yogi was staying. And she gave the yogi the beer, offered the yogi beer, and she attempted to seduce him. And the yogi, looking at the woman, thought to himself, this is according to the prophecy of my guru. This woman must be an incarnation of the Vajrayogini, and he was very happy to keep her there as his consort. The two of them stayed together. As they were living together, they, in time, had two children, a boy and a girl. And the woman finally said to him, if we're going to live here permanently on the mountain, it's really difficult for our family. Please, let's go to my house. Let's go live in my house. And so the yogi went along with his wife and went to stay in her house. And the king was overjoyed at this turn of events. And he thought to himself, now I have an opportunity to really shame him. And so the king organized a big kind of a festival, a kind of a party, and he invited everyone to it. And he organized it in the form of a kind of a meeting, and he invited the yogi to come. And he invited the yogi, and the yogi came and sat down in the seat that was provided for him. And everybody else, all of the ministers of the king and all the public were there. And in the middle of this big assembly, the king said, this yogi, and he pointed to the man, is a terrible example of yogihood. And moreover, he is a bullshit artist. When I first met him, I invited him to be my household priest, and he replied that he was without attachments and desires. And now take a look at this guy. You think he wants anything? You think he's attached to anything? Look at him. He was sitting there with his consort and with his two children, and next to them was a big bamboo container of beer. And when the king said that, everybody looked at the yogi and his family and thought, oh, what a terrible yogi this guy is. However, the yogi was an adept in the practice of demchok. So, at that very moment, he transformed himself into Shambhara, the male aspect of Demchok. He transformed his wife into the Vajrayogini, the female aspect of Demchok. He transformed his daughter into a bell, his son into a Vajra, and placing them in his hands, he crossed his hands over his wife who was seated on his lap. In the position of union, he rose up into the sky and disappeared into space. So that's the way it is. If worldly people look at this, they think it's bad. For the yogi itself, it is wonderful. This is just a story to show how important it is to have the wisdom mudra, the wisdom consort. So now I will speak a little bit about the wisdom dakini in the form of Aryatara, the female Buddha, and how this came to be in our world. This was a manifestation from the Nirmanakaya level of Buddhahood. So in speaking of the actual origin of the goddess Tara, we should understand that the essence of all of the Buddhas taking the form of the Lord of Compassion, Avalokitesvara, taking the form of Avalokitesvara, looking at the condition of all sentient beings and seeing their suffering, was so moved by compassion that 2 tears rolled down his cheeks. From these 2 tears rolling down his cheeks were formed the goddesses, white Tara and green Tara. From these 2 forms of Tara manifested in order to fill all the various requirements called the various requirements of sentient beings, in order to fill the requirements of all of the various possibilities of Buddha activities, 21 other forms of the goddess Tara manifested. The essence of all of these is the very same wisdom. In order to perform and fulfill all of the various requirements of sentient beings, in order to fulfill all of these Buddha activities, they have different forms and different colors, different appearances. For example, in order to reduce diseases, to reduce obstacles caused by demonic forces, to reduce sin, there is the white Tara. In order to fulfill all of the various aspects which require expanding, such as the extension of life, the extension and expanding of one's merits, one's wisdom, one's qualities, in order to expand and increase all of these, there is yellow Tara. As an aspect of power, in order to have power over gods, men, and demons. For the sake of this, there is red Tara. In order to remove the obstacles caused by the formless demons, and demons moreover having form, there is sometimes an aspect of Tara which is dark green or even black. In the same way, in order to fulfill all these various requirements, there are different kinds of emanations of the goddess, having different appearances and different attributes. So all of these various aspects of the goddess Tara are actually aspects of Buddha activities and manifestations of Buddha activities. Because of this, one should understand that whatever one's own requirements may be, whoever one is, wherever one is in this world, if one prays to the goddess Tara, this is a very, very quick and direct way of achieving one's desires. Moreover, she has the ability to reduce the the 8 great fears that exist in the world. And the other 16 terrors of the world. There are lists of these. And she is able to conquer all of these. She is called in Tibetan Drolma, which means the savioress. And what is it that she saves from? What is it that she liberates from? It is I think we need a break, just a minute. Also, historically speaking, among the 500 great accomplished yogis of India, as well as the 140 very important scholars of India, most of them had as their personal practice the yoga of the goddess Tara. And through this type of practice, they realized both the ordinary and supreme accomplishment. And in Tibet, among all of the yogis, in numbers inconceivable to the mind, most of them came to realization through the practice of Tara. Since the goddess Tara originated within the mandala of the Lord of Compassion Avalokitesvar and is able to accomplish all of the various Buddha activities, since she is the source of protection in both one's very own lifetime, after death, and in future existences, she is more important even than other forms of the Buddha in accomplishing one's desires.
디 산제 탐제게 챌린지가 임바다 그는 한번 모두지
As I mentioned before, since the goddess Tara is essentially an emanation of all of the various Buddha activities,
마주길 하인자 심제
and since she is a deity of the mother lineages,
그지 시다 뉴르고래
her compassion is extremely close and direct,
진행도 모두 도야 시다 요고래
and through doing the practice of the goddess Tara, the blessings come very, very quickly.
김제 카레제스도 오늘 시라게 하인자
Since she is the wisdom deity,
내가 나시 다다기 두전 들라 내가 하버도 누초기 윤 들라 근데 지수 좀 마음이 더 많이 받자친 거제
and moreover, one should understand that her practice is appropriate for the present time, for this particular period of history, for this particular time, and for this particular place, and in particular for the Western world. It is an appropriate and effective practice.
가리에서는 땐제가 요래
The reason for this is because we have a connection with her.
가리에서도 참아 근데 지수 좀 마음이 리그나게 나네 아니 숨 빼면 리그제
Within the 5 families, known as the 5 Buddha families, Red Tara is an emanation of the Lotus family.
이식나게 나네 소설도 이식이 따르제
Among the 5 types of wisdom, she is an emanation of discriminating wisdom.
그래 초나게 나네 누초 왕게 파제
Among the 5 directions, she is in particular the deity of the West.
이 윤데 나도 데 zamling 누비 초래 요래
In the world, this particular area is called the West.
이 윤데 제가 요래서야 되 김센티제
And that's the reason that I say that we here have a connection with this goddess.
내가 나시 두준 디가 가르치는 레스도 참바
Again, we should understand that this particular period of time is appropriate for doing this kind of practice.
두준 데라 페나 나도 나게 쳐라 링규 까마다 니규 때마생이 규바 라마나 니요아레
In the Buddhist tradition that we follow, there are 2 particular lineages, and these are called the oral tradition lineages and the hidden treasure lineages.
일단 나도 대바되는 게 아니 니규 때마게 쳐래
The type that we speak of now is called a hidden treasure.
규바 니고레
Its source is very, very close to us.
제 가르레스도 두준 되게 때르생한데 가르레스도
First of all, I should explain a little bit about what a hidden treasure is.
두준으로 본제 때도 배워제
Hidden treasures in the form of Dharma treasures, for example, texts, actual written texts for use, are things which have been hidden in order to be discovered at the appropriate time and for future times, like time capsules.
이 가르치는 두준으로 보면서도 안에 로드 소설라 semjengi 세바디 로자탄데 노다 단대파게 sem발라 시작하가제 이 인도 다제게 두준 되게 semjengi 영몽의 슈제다 아니 추억의 슈제다 보티
And the reason that there is such a thing as the hidden treasure system is because the minds of people change and the customs change And what is appropriate at one particular period of time may not be appropriate at other times. So these various treasures were compiled with the idea in mind of being appropriate for the spirit of the times and for the customs of the times. And in particular, at this particular time, when the great passions are very, very powerful, there are certain types of practices which are meant for us at this stage in history. So this particular practice of Red Tara is for the present day. And it is extremely valuable for us because its source is very, very close to us. It is very close in time to us. It is a very, very direct practice. And with regard to its meaning, it is in order to protect us from the various types of sufferings of the world. There are three great types of suffering. The suffering of disease. The suffering of war. The suffering of famine. So the practice of Red Tara is very, very effective for alleviating these three great sufferings. For a period of time in which horrible diseases exist, diseases that are so awful that when we even name them, we feel fear. Diseases that are new and have no cures, unknown cures. Diseases that doctors don't understand. Diseases that have no names as yet. Where there are no means to cure them. At this present time, such things actually exist. So, even for this, the practice of Red Tara and prayers to Red Tara are effective in alleviating these types of diseases. So in the Buddhist texts, they refer to periods of time where incurable diseases will arise, and there will be many of them. And this is such a time. And moreover, the Buddhist texts refer to periods of time in which horrible weapons exist capable of destroying the entire world. And this is certainly so at this present time. They speak of invincible horrors, such as incurable diseases and weapons that cause terrible destruction. Wars that can't be won. speak of wars that are impossible to win. So at such a time when such things actually exist, actually we should understand that the source of these horrors are actually demonic influences in the minds of human beings. Human beings who would create weapons that could destroy the earth, who could contemplate wars that could destroy all sentient beings, who could actually engage in these horrendous activities. All these people have come under the influence of demonic forces. People who could spread horrible diseases. People who could actually think of and actually act on causing terrible suffering are under demonic influence. And for this purpose, prayer to the goddess Tara can help. In order to pacify their minds, one may pray to the goddess Tara. The more people who can actually pray, the more power there is to alleviate this kind of suffering. We also speak of there being famines which cause terrible, terrible sufferings. And even though at this present time we are not experiencing this in the West, it's certainly going on in Africa. We can also pray to the goddess Tara to send rain to these areas of drought where there are terrible famines. We can ask the goddess Tara to help so that food grains will grow in order to help these people. And this type of prayer is effective. This is just speaking of the suffering of our very own world. There are many, many worlds. There are also all kinds of sufferings that we experience. The suffering of getting what we don't want, things happening that we don't want to happen. I mentioned that there are 8 great types of suffering and 16 other types of suffering. For all of these kinds of things that could possibly happen to sentient beings, all the kinds of you can probably imagine them, the kinds of things that we don't want to experience. For all of these, prayers to the goddess Tara can help.
다도 내가 탐지를 쪽에 가리에서 아니 이식을 할수 있는 장
So we should understand that actually praying to the goddess Tara can help to reduce the suffering that we experience in this very lifetime. But not only for this very lifetime. In the intermediate stage after death, and in future existences as well, we can rely on the protection of the goddess Tara, because she is in essence the wisdom deity.
근데 인자 그거 김자 30메시아가
So because of all of these, we should understand that to do a type of practice like this is extremely important.
아니 이제 지난주 디사제 딜이야 또 잔주름 붙이기 싫어 라마 인가요 공기 지금 좀 마모 이제 수 가수를 야 다중에 라바나시 뭐라는 게 슈때
So you are very fortunate in being here in Spokane, where Chaktud Rinpoche has sent Lama Inga, who does the practice of red tar and who can help you with this if you want to do it. And she stayed, you should know that she stayed 3 years and 3 months in retreat. And during this time she accomplished the practice of the goddess Tara and realized the practice of the goddess Tara, received the blessings of the deity. So the more you pray, the more power there is. And the more people who are praying, the more power there is. So even if you have a few moments, please pray. Whenever you have any time, please pray. So what is it that is most powerful in human beings? What is most powerful about us is that we have an inherent possibility for wisdom and bliss. Because of this, when we pray, we can pray very powerfully. We have the ability to pray with power. So today we've made a connection here because you've come to hear me speak. But my real hope in making this connection with you is that you will have a desire to practice Dharma. A Dharma is what we call the path. In speaking of Dharma, I am not restricting it to just my own particular path, which is Buddhism, because whatever path is effective, if you believe in it, if you actually have faith in it, that is sufficient. As I mentioned before, if one has faith, then the great compassion of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas can reflect. Just as I always say, if there's even a small amount of water, the moon can reflect in it. And this water that I'm speaking of is faith. So whatever particular path you have faith in, please do it. And that's all I have to say for tonight. If you have any questions, please ask.
I spoke about desires, fulfilling desires, and I thought it sounded funny in that I thought the idea was to lessen desire. But at some point, I thought you made a point about increasing desires or fulfilling your desires by prayer, or so I'm confused.
내가 가르쳐 추 가르치가 야 아무 추는 내가 매 추는 내가 매게 미치기 아니 뭐는 잡두고 말해 내가 공장이야 먼저 지난 뭐는 잡 슬라나 공장 있으면 내가 따는 거 말이야
He says, first of all, don't be confused about the word desire. He said desire is certainly something that we need. For example, if you don't have any desire to practice Dharma, then you have no connection with it. You have no faith. If you feel it as a real necessity for yourself, only then can you pray. Only then can you really feel something. It's in order to fulfill the desire for the blessings of religion that you actually will pray and make a connection. For example, if one were a communist from the heart who felt that religion was something, absolutely useless and fake and didn't have any faith in it, then what would there be the point of speaking to such a person about prayer? They would have no desires in that direction, for any help in that direction. So they wouldn't be able to pray. One can speak of this as being desire. One can speak of this as being faith. One can say belief also, or trust. One can speak of love. All of these things are essentially the same. They are ways of making a connection. For example, if you want to make a connection with a person, if you don't feel any affection, if you want to make friends with a person, if you don't have the feeling of affection or love, there's no real way of making friends. You're lacking something there. So you need that feeling in order to make a connection. And that's what he means by desire.
Could he explain a little more on emptiness? What exactly emptiness?
Well, sometimes we speak of emptiness, sometimes we speak of empty, and they're different. They mean different things. One is emptiness and one is empty. When we say simply empty, we can speak of, for example, the sky. It's empty. It's essentially empty. Empty space. That has no meaning. When we speak of emptiness, which the real term in Sanskrit is shunyata, this is the source of all dharmas, the source of all paths. So we can, in speaking of the world, we say that it is supported by space. It exists in space. In speaking of emptiness, we say that it has qualities, certain qualities. For example, yeah, love that.
남게 까마 탐지 수년 샤리 그래. 수년 샤야디 가르르스 동바 이 코랑게 연당이 샤리 그래. 속이 이 삼부땅이 여말에 남게 까마 강강에 나가 수년 샤 보긴도 강강아 샤 주비 인 삼바게 레와 제바 말에 코랑게 연대네. 속 코랑게 연대를 때네 하는 남게 까마 수년 샤리 말에.
We say that emptiness has many qualities. When we speak of there being qualities, if we want to compare it to something, we can say that the ocean has certain qualities also. It has an ability to reflect. For example, it may reflect stars. Stars may appear on the surface of the ocean. This is a result of the reflective quality of the ocean. It doesn't mean that the ocean thought, now I will reflect stars. It's just simply a natural inherent quality of the ocean, the fact that it can reflect. So it's like that. So So when we speak of emptiness, we speak of something which has natural qualities.
남게 까마 소나라 샤야 누가 여대바 디랑 연대제 디 연대데 디 수게 저바 말에 초크랑게 저바 말에 매매 흐르기 차네 용해지가 어디 연대데 어디 대샤나 틴다고 해 저는 남카이나 남카 동바제 동바 나가 강양 샤트 비요래 샤야 누가 시요래
So the reason that he compared it to the ocean or to a lake, something which is reflective, is because qualities arise out of emptiness, not because emptiness has any kind of directional consciousness in the sense of deciding that something is going to arise, but simply because it has as its nature the ability to reflect. Did that clarify anything about emptiness?
Thank you very much.
So it seems that's all we have to say for tonight. And I wish again to wish you good luck and hopes that we will meet again. In Tibetan we say Tashidele, or something like good luck.
I'm always amazed when dude, just go right. It was the last talk too. It was right at the very end. Yeah.
How are we doing?
Plenty of room.
videotape everybody cleaning up.
Pardon?
Videotape everybody cleaning up.
There you go.
Funny to.
You gotta just kind of go up like this.
There you go. That's what you have to do.
I've heard about your place so many times, I never knew where it was. Have you been a new place?
I think that's one thing, but if you really look at it, there are a lot of well, one thing you want to be protected is
Stick around, huh? Stay away from the video machine. Because he's going after the video machine. How you doing?
maybe some but we can pray to this because it's
All the way down to Arlong's speech pattern.
the source of it is wisdom. The source is wisdom. This is just a form that's put on wisdom. This is a way of making the responsibility.
I wanted to say I didn't
Hi, Norris. Horace.
So we relate to it.
How are you? Oh, fine. Yeah, it's sort of the niche in the organization. How did you like the company?
especially since I've been here.
It depends on what you're reflecting. You mean another meaning? What are you?
Yeah, it
Oh,
helps
you
a
mean
lot.
if somebody else? Yes, if someone says something like